What happened to all the names our grandparents used to hear every day? Names that used to fill classrooms, offices, and family dinners are now gone from the playground. Some sounded noble, some sounded harsh, and a few were just plain amazing in their own old-fashioned manner. If you enjoyed seeing the Britain we grew up in again, please like the video and subscribe for more. Let's open the family album, clean up the old registration, and remember 20 British names you don't hear very often nowadays. First, Doris. This name was quite popular in Britain during the height of glamour between the wars and when Doris Day from Hollywood added a little shine to it. It was bright, modern, and full of life. But by the 1970s, Doris had discreetly left, and newer, sleeker people like Julie and Karen had taken her place. Today, it mostly lives on in postcards from the beach and old sitcoms that make you feel nostalgic. But every now and then, a baby Doris shows up. Even the most old-fashioned names can come back in style. Second, Gladys. You can almost hear it in a sweet Welsh voice. Gladys used to be as common as Sarah or Emma, kind, clean, and very respectful. It peaked in the early 1900s and was strong for decades. But as time went on, people started to think of it as something that stern aunts and practical shoes wore. It now feels wonderfully old-fashioned, like a name that smells like lavender and toffee. 3. Beryl. It sounds like a jewel because it is one. The Beryl looked great in the 1930s and 1940s. Women who worked hard, laughed a lot, and knew their worth carried it. It's useful, strong, and clearly British. The name of a person who always has a purse full of mints and a story to tell. Today, Beryl is no longer on birth certificates, but it is still in people's minds. It's just post-war Britain in one word. 4. Gertrude. Serious, tough, and smart, Gertrude was important to Victorian parents. It signified spear of strength. Nicknames like Gertie or Trudy made it sound less serious, but the entire name needed respect. By the 1950s, it was no longer in style because it sounded too strict for modern ears. Still, it's impossible not to admire how brave it is. A name made for a world that valued character over style. 5. Ethel. Ethel was formerly one of the most popular names in Britain. It meant noble, and it sounded like it. It was classy, elegant, and suitable for middle-class families in the early 1900s, but language changed, and soon Ethel felt more like a lace doily than a new girl. By the 1950s, she was done with the baby albums. Today, it's only a memory of wooden radios, sing-alongs, and black and white family portraits. Hilda, which means battle, was number 6. It had grit written all over it. It was popular in the early 1900s, especially among working-class people in Britain. It brings to mind women in headscarves maintaining homes and staying calm during air raids. Hilda wasn't beautiful, but she was dependable. Maybe that's why the name deserves more respect than it receives. Mildred, number 7. A beautiful contradiction that literally means gentle strength. Women all over Britain wore the moniker Mildred with modest pride. But parents after the war wanted something lighter, thus Millie became its own name, leaving poor Mildred alone. But now when you hear it, it seems warm, like hearing your grandma's voice on an old tape. Phyllis, number 8. Green and graceful. It means leaves in Greek. Phyllis filled up school registers from London to Leeds for decades. It sounded like a book, but it was also simple and homey. But by the 1970s, it sounded like something from a ration book. People still talk about Phyllis and keep her memory alive. A name that softly grew and then went gone. Enid is number 9. Tennyson wrote about her in a romantic, poetic, and very British way. Enid Blyton made her famous, and for a time, she was everywhere. But from the 1960s, people stopped using the clip sound of Enid and started using gentler names. It still sounds smart, courageous, and charmingly old-fashioned today. Mabel is number 10. Mabel was a big deal in Edwardian Britain because it meant lovable, happy, polite, and kind. It went away in the middle of the century, but Mabel's narrative has a joyful ending, unlike other of her sister's stories that have been lost. She is back. There are now a few tiny Mabels walking about in nurseries all around the UK. Some names truly do come full circle, as this shows. Norman, number 11, like a brick home. It signifies Northmen, and it stayed strong all the way into the 20th century. Great for guys who fixed things, served in the military, or started their lives from scratch. In the 1980s, though, Norman was no longer remembered. Instead, names with softer edges took his place. But hardly many names sound more British. Nest, number 12, after being laden with dignity and a little humor from Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest, explorers, writers, and gentlemen carried it with pride. Then styles altered. Earnest was a vestige of grammar schools and stiff collars at the end of the 20th century, but its appeal will never fade. It denotes someone who means what they say. Clifford, number 13, Ford was close to a precipice, and Clifford's voice was rough but smooth. It felt polite, robust, and reliable. The kind of name that would shake your hand firmly and remember your birthday. It lasted a little longer when it was shortened to Cliff, but the full version vanished quickly after the 1960s. Still, not many names seem more British or like they belong in a tweed jacket. Leslie, number 14, a name that began with Scottish nobles and spread to every British office and street. Leslie was sharp, adaptable, and omnipresent during the years between the wars. But by the 1970s, short, modern names like Lee and Neil became the most popular. Leslie still has a warm feeling to it. You can picture the neighbor who constantly waved at you from his front yard. Wilfred, number 15, Wilf is short for friendly and gentle. Wilfried was a popular name for boys born between the wars. It is a quiet decency that many modern names don't have. It disappeared for decades, but it's coming back in a startling way. Maybe we've started to miss names that sound nice. Seal, number 16. Seal was classy, old-fashioned, and a little aristocratic. It was for poets, politicians, and guys who possessed libraries with fireplaces. By the middle of the century, it was way too formal for a Briton that wore jeans and listened to pop music. Now, it lives on in theater signs, parks, and a few old uncles who are kind and don't disturb anyone. Horace is number 17. Horace was the name of a man who was smart and serious. He recited Latin and never missed a train. In Victorian Britain, it had a lot of respect, but by the 1960s, it sounded too stiff. It's not common now, but it's not forgotten. It seems like every family has had a Horace who was always on time, courteous, and a little confused by the contemporary world. Edna, number 18, like a nice cup of tea, it's simple, solid, and reliable. Edna was a household name for 50 years. Then names like Emma and Anna, which were gentler, became more popular. But Edna still has charm and a calm strength, like someone who knows all the neighbors on the street. Bertha, number 19. It used to indicate famous and dazzling. And for a while, Victorian parents liked it because it was so sure of itself. At some point, though, Bertha became a joke. She was gone by the 1970s, recognized largely in funny jokes or cartoon machines. A fall from grace, but one that will be remembered. 20. Gwendoline. One of the most romantic names ever given in Britain. Soft, melodious, and very Welsh, you would see this name in antique love letters or handwritten wedding invitations. But by the middle of the 20th century, the nicknames Gwen and Wendy had taken control and the full version was no longer used. But if you say it now, you can almost hear a hop and a hint of rose perfume. They weren't just names. They were voices, values, and memories that were a part of everyday life. Everyone offers a narrative about the Britain that made us who we are. A Britain with tea breaks, letters written by hand, and neighbors who really knew your name. So, did your family have a Doris, an Edna, or a Wolf?